But in any case, on Monday, as I recall, I was saying, okay, I've had it. This is it. I believe that the Democrats, unless Donald Trump was to actually behave in good faith, and there's no evidence of that, and the fact that Mike Pence is his vice president, there's double no evidence of that. And then you look at his transition team and you look at the people he's already appointed, there's triple no evidence of that. So I think we can safely set that aside. Therefore, my opinion is that the Democrats should be doing exactly to President Trump exactly the same thing that the Republicans did to President Obama for the last 8 years. And that is fight him on everything. And now, that doesn't mean that you shut the government down. The Democrats don't have the power to do that. They don't have the ability to do that. But they can say, you know, we're going to just make it a norm now in the Senate. You can't pass something with 50 votes. It takes 60 votes. Every single piece of legislation. You're going to have 60 votes, Republicans. So you're going to have to peel off at least 6 or 8 Democrats to vote for your legislation, or it ain't going to happen. And therefore, it's got to be a little less than totally crazy. You know, this is kind of a starting point. So anyhow, I was saying this, and a number of people called and said, "Oh, no, you should cooperate and collaborate, and et cetera, et cetera." And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And Elizabeth Warren just sent a letter to President-elect Trump. And I say that because that's the opening to her letter. Dear President-elect Trump, during your campaign for president of the United States, you railed against powerful special interests, Elizabeth Warren writes. This is yesterday. She sent this letter. That have, quote, rigged our political and economic system for their exclusive benefit. You excoriated trade deals, which you described as mortal threats to American manufacturing and disasters pushed by special interests. You promised that you would not be controlled by the donors, special interests, and lobbyists who have corrupted our politics and politicians for too long, and that you would drain the swamp in D.C. And you won the election largely on the strength of these promises. And then she goes on to say, within days of your election, you have elevated a slew of Wall Street bankers, industry insiders, and special interest lobbyists to your transition team. Even more are rumored to be named as potential cabinet members. Based on public reports, your transition team and your potential cabinet include over 20 Wall Street elites, industry insiders, and lobbyists making decisions that could have huge implications for their clients or employers. They include, among many others, a former Goldman Sachs executive who is rumored to be a Treasury Secretary pick, a paid consultant for Verizon who is making key decisions on your administration's Federal Communication Commission, a top lobbyist who firm lobbied on issues related to the Trans-Pacific Partnership who is shaping your Labor Department, and a climate change-denying, oil industry-paid think tank fellow who is leading your environmental team's transition. That would be Myron E. Bell. If you truly stand by your commitment to make government work for all Americans, not just those with armies of lobbyists on the payroll, you must remove the lobbyists and financial bigwigs. And she goes on through this. And then she goes through the list. David Malpass, Paul Akins, et cetera. And then it's a long, you can find her letter, I'm sure, over at her website at warren.senate.gov should be her website. And so in conclusion, she says, it is no secret that we fundamentally disagree on a number of issues of critical importance to the future of this nation, issues that I will never stop fighting for and will never compromise on. Members of my party are fed up. 72% of voters, both Democrats and Republicans, believe that the American economy is rigged to the advantage of the rich and powerful. As I said last week, when your goal is to increase the economic security of middle-class families, then count me in. I will put aside our differences and work with you to accomplish that goal. See, this is the caveat. I don't think that's going to happen. The early report of who's on your transition team indicate, however, despite your campaign promises, you are looking to industry insiders, lobbyists, and other special interests to shape Washington, D.C. under your administration. Let me be clear. She ends this letter. And this is my message, too. She says, let me be clear. Should you refuse, in other words, to fight for the interests of all Americans, should you refuse, I will oppose you every step of the way for the next 4 years. I will champion the millions of Americans you will fail to protect. I will track your every move, and I will remind Americans every day of the actions that you take that fail them. And I will not be the only one watching. The millions of Americans who voted for you and the millions who didn't will all be watching you. So, Resistance Central, the Thom Hartmann program, now home of the resistance. This is, I am declaring this. I'm putting this flag on this soil. We are going to fight this administration on everything they try to do that corrupts America further. And if you look at the people, it is true. Personnel is policy. You put climate deniers in charge of the EPA, guess what? The EPA is not going to protect the environment. You put people who hate organized labor in charge of the Labor Department, guess what? You're going to have you're going to be destroying unions. We are going to fight this.